Next.js is the React web application framework. It marries React as a language, library, and a mental model with everything else you need to build web applications today. With one tool, you are able to tap into the full potential of the modern JavaScript and React ecosystem and techniques to deliver highly interactive and performant applications productively. It's so ubiquitous that it needs no introduction. Now, even as a recommendation from the React dev team, it's gonna remain one of the most solid choices today and in the future. The baked-in Next.js opinions and conventions let you build apps of all sizes and complexities. Client and server rendering, nested routing, data fetching, built-in optimizations, TypeScript support, API routes, middleware, Node.js and Edge runtimes, and CSS support. All of this makes it a solid choice for the React web applications that are built today and in the future. The only choice you have to make is whether React as the language and Next.js as a full-stack framework is a good fit for your use case. In 2023, Next.js is taking a huge leap forward. It has introduced something called App Directory or App Router, which is going to change how you build Next.js applications today. From Next.js initial versions to Next.js 13, the way you fundamentally build web application doesn't change. But with App Router, a lot is changing. Next, over the past few months, has collaborated with the React team to introduce something called server components, and it's hugely relying on React App features to offer you an unparalleled experience when building with React web applications. In this series, we'll dive into all the essential aspects that are changing with Next.js 13. Before we dive into understanding how Next.js 13 App Router works and what's going to change for us as web developers when Next.js completely shifts to the App Router model, let's just quickly touch upon how do we work with Next.js 13 today. Create Next app, use the latest version, use TypeScript, use ESLint, and hit enter. It will ask for the app name. Go ahead and call it Next Classic. Okay, would you like to use a source directory or not? So when you choose the yes option here, it will create a source directory and it will place everything inside the source directory. If you choose no, it will place everything at the root of the folder, right? So just go ahead and choose no. Let's not create a source directory and then further next folders inside it. Just go ahead and choose no over here. Now this is the key option. It asks whether we want to go ahead with the app directory or not. If we choose an app directory here, Next.js will create an app directory, which is going to be the default format when Next.js 13 App Router becomes stable. But unless it becomes more stable, we can stick with the approach we have been using so far, right? So go ahead and choose no, whether we'd like to use import alias or not. Let's go ahead and use import alias. It will go ahead and install all of the dependencies. So all of our dependencies are installed now. Let's just go inside the project, which is called Next Classic. Go ahead and use your default code editor. We are inside our code editor. What have we got by default? So by default, we have got a typical Node.js project structure. We have a package.json file, we have a package log.json file, we have a readme. Since it's using TypeScript, we have a tsconfig.json file also with the import alias already provided so that we can directly import relative references by using @ before it, right? And then we have a public folder for the static assets and stuff, and we have a styles folder for the styles. We have global CSS or module CSS. It's using CSS module currently, right? So we have module.css as suffix to all of these files. If you are new to CSS modules, consider them like your usual CSS with key convenience that these classes are importable inside your JSX or TSX files, right? So you'd be able to do something like when you import something like home module.css inside one of your applications, you'd be able to do something like styles, and then you'd be able to refer all of the classes with a dot notation, just like you access object keys, right? So that's the key convenience you get out of CSS modules besides other benefits. But since this is about Next.js, we won't dive into it much. So let's just go ahead and see other things that it created for us, right? So we are already on the index.tsx file. By default, we get an index.tsx file, which is inside the pages directory. Pages directory is used to actually establish the route for your web application, right? Inside the pages directory, any file that you create registers a route for your web application. If you have an index.tsx file at the root of your pages directory, it means that whenever a user will visit this URL in the web browser, they'll get this index.tsx file rendered over there, right? So let's just quickly see this. If you look at the package.json file, we have 4 commands available: dev for running your development server, build for running your build, start for starting your project, and lint for linting your project files, right? So let's just go ahead and run npm run dev and see how it's working. Open your terminal and type npm run dev over there. The server has started on localhost 3000 port. Let's just open our browser and type localhost 3000 over there. Remove this. Let it open. So here's your default homepage, right? If you open this in your code editor, this is your index.tsx file, right? There's a head tag, which is a custom Next.js component. You have a main tag. Inside the main tag, you have all of the markup that you are able to see currently in your browser, right? Go ahead and update this to something else. Open your file, and there, instead of saying pages.index.tsx file, just say pages.index.ts file. It doesn't matter. We just want to see if it's working, right? It updated. This is instantly refreshing feedback loop, right? Go back to your project. So the way this works, you have already seen, is this index.tsx file gets directly mapped to your project's homepage, which is the default page, right? What if you need to create more pages? The way to create more pages is you just go inside your pages directory and you keep adding files over there, right? Say that you have an about page. You'll basically create about.tsx file, and within this file, you just say export default function about page, and there you can just return a div, and there you can just return a div about page div. Save this, go back to your browser, and here just type about. What did we see? We are noticing about page over here. Just zoom this a bit, right? We're able to see the about page. Go back. We need to create more pages? No problem. Just go ahead, create more files inside the pages directory. Go ahead and create a contact.tsx file, right? Go inside your about, copy this, open your contact.tsx file, place it over here, just change this to contact, and similarly, just for correct naming, change this to contact page. Go ahead, open your browser again. Instead of about, type contact, and you'll see a contact page, right? Say that you have a blog page. Let's go ahead and create a blog page. The another way of creating pages is you can create a directory, right? Go ahead and create blog, and inside the blog, you can just create a file called index.tsx file. And inside the index.tsx file, again, you can have a default React component export. So you can place this over here and call it blog listing page and change this to blog page. This naming doesn't matter. It could be just pages too. But for the sake of clarity, we'll just keep it to blog page. Save this, go back to your browser, type blog over here, and you'll see the blog listing page, right? It's all working for us, right? So this is how file system based routing works. You drop a file inside the pages directory and you can expect routes directly mapped to the way the files are organized inside the pages directory. If you need to do something like nesting or stuff, you can create more folders inside here. Say that you have a path called account. You can easily do something like account. Say that you have a path inside it called setting, right? You can just go ahead and create settings, right? Inside settings, say that you need to provide a page for profile settings, right? You can just go ahead and create a file over here called profile.tsx. And similarly, just like these files, you can create a React component export over here and call this profile settings page, and let's call this settings page. Once this is saved, you can just go here and instead of blog, type account settings profile, right? Open this, you have profile settings page. So that's the beauty and convenience that you get when you use Next.js, right? You simply drop a file and you get routes out of it. You need to provide something dynamic, that's also possible, right? Say that the blog segment has multiple blogs. How do you go about it? You'd usually do something like, say we have a blog called Next.js 13 is awesome.tsx, right? Go ahead and just use this particular export over here. Save this and correct this typo. And here say Next.js 13 is awesome. Next.js 13 is awesome, and just call this a blog page. Next.js 13 is awesome. You have more blogs. Just duplicate this and create another one over here, and let's call it Next.js 13 appder is awesomer, right? So now inside the blog segment we'll have two blocks, right? One is Next 13 is awesome, another one is Next 13 appder is awesome, right? Save this, close this, open this, type this over here, type this over here, appder is awesome, right? How do you go about this? Once this is saved, you can just go inside your browser and you can use this paths, right? Rename, copy this, go back to your browser, open the blog page, and there type Next.js 13 is awesome, and you have a path over there, right? This is the core foundation of building something like a blog engine or a blog system. But you can easily see that with a growing blog, this could really become cumbersome, right? So to do away with this, we have dynamic paths also, right? So what we can do is we can create something like new file slug tsx. Once you have a file with this square bracket notation, you'll be able to use the slug key to actually identify the dynamic parts of a path, like something like Next.js 13 is awesome becomes the dynamic part, which is available to your component, and based on this slug, you'll be able to fetch the block, say from the file system or from a DB or from an API, right? So now all of this can go, right? All of this can be removed. You can have just one component export and you can just totally do away with this, and place this over here. Will this work or not? Type enter. This still works, right? Because this slug is intercepting the dynamic part of the path, right? If you type something like if, this won't work because this is something that's not recognized, right? But as soon as you remove the unnecessary part, this entire pattern of blog and a slug is matched by blog and a slug, right? And that's the key to the dynamism in any Next.js application. You can use this dynamic slug to build multiple pages at compile time. You can use this dynamic slug to fetch a dynamic page at runtime, right? So that's the entire magic of it. We'll dive into the different ways of fetching data in a later video, but for now just understand that this is how a Next.js app works fundamentally, right? You have a pages directory, you have directories inside the pages directory and files inside the pages directory, and every file you create registers a route, right? Even if you have, say, something like a utils.tsx, Next.js will feel that this is a page, right? And it will try to render a page for it, and it will expect a React component exported out of this file, right? Besides pages, you have two reserved files present by default inside the pages directory. One is underscore app.tsx file, another is underscore document.tsx file. These two files are key files that orchestrate your entire page-based experience, where underscore app.tsx file acts like the central orchestrator of your client-side page routing experience. Underscore document.tsx file, as the name suggests, is the core HTML document where every HTML markup eventually sits, right? This particular file imports several custom components out of Next.js like HTML, head, main, and next script, where HTML takes care of actually rendering the HTML tag and do other few things. Head takes care of rendering things like the title or the description meta tags for your different pages. And component actually acts as a slot where every page component eventually comes and leaves. And next script takes care of hydrating your pages on the client side. If this is removed, none of your pages will be hydrated or initialized on the client side, and you won't have any interactivity. Coming back to the underscore app.tsx file, and this one component is actually responsible for rendering all of your pages like about.tsx, contact.tsx, or index.tsx when you follow the browser-based SPA-like routing. If you don't follow it, it goes through the document cycle and then app.tsx, and then it's actually eventually rendered. To show you visually, here's what happens. You have a document.tsx file, and then you have an app.tsx file, and then there are all the pages. All of these pages are traded in and out when you follow the client-side route transitions. Now let's just quickly link these pages. Go ahead and create a new container div over here. Let's call it just layout app, right? And close this div, cut this, paste it over here, remove this, save this, import the link tag out of next, and use this link tag to create a navigation component, div, class name, nav, close the div, inside the nav, let's just go ahead and put our link tag, say href, and inside the href, give path to our home page, close the link tag, and say home. So this will point to the root home page. Let's duplicate this two more times. Let's link to blog, link to about, link to blog, link to about, save this, go back to your browser, open this. Now we are able to see this, right? This is our navigation link, right? So when we click on home, we are taken back to the home page. The home page is not having any menu at this point, and its layout is messed up a bit. Go back to the previous one, click on blog, you are on the blog listing page, click on about, you are on the about page, right? That's how you link your pages, right? So whenever you hit enter over here, everything is refreshed and re-rendered. Your page detail is collected, it's combined with the app.tsx markup, and then it's actually integrated to the document.tsx file. So every markup that you see in your code base eventually gets rendered, right? The document, the app, and the about. If you look at the markup over here, inspect this. What did you got? You got an HTML tag, you got the head, right? All of the head tags are placed over here with everything Next.js needs. Then you have a body tag, then you have a div dedicated to next, then you have your layout app, right? And this layout app is coming from here. Within the layout app, you have your nav with home, blog, and about, and then you are on the about page. Let's make a transition again. Go to about, what changed? Nothing, right? You are still on the same page. The markup also didn't got destroyed, right? Go on the blog page, what changed? The navigation is still persistent, but the markup got changed to the blog listing page. Click on home, what changed, right? So the navigation menu is still there. It's somewhere hidden because of a CSS issue, but the main changed, right? So that's how client-side transition work. It's like your usual spa. Go back to these pages again, click on blog, click on about. So once your page is fully bootstrapped, once your page is fully rendered and loaded, if you follow the next link-based approach to navigate to your pages, the routing actually takes place totally on the browser side, and the pages are not destroyed. If you need to keep something persistent, you'd actually use your app.tsx file to keep anything persistent, right? As a common conventional pattern, you place things inside the underscore app.tsx file. This is the place where you'll keep the elements that are common to multiple pages. All of these can be actually extracted into a layout component. Let's just go ahead and create a component folder over here. Components, right? Inside components, you can have something like a layout.tsx, right? And here you can just say export default function root layout, and there you can say return. Go back in your app.tsx file, take all of this, open your layout.tsx file, place it over here, remove this, import the link component, import link. The link errors will go, start the div markup, the markup issue will go, and here just accept one prop. Let's call it interface layout props, and we'd expect one property called children. This property could be react node, and we'll use this prop over here. We'll say that this particular component needs a children. We'll use the layout props interface over here. We'll take the children over here, and then we'll use the children here, right? Now we can actually use this layout inside our app.tsx component. Just import it, right? Import layout, remove the duplicate import. This root layout can now be used in place of this particular component, right? Link is not needed anymore. Save this. With this change, let's see the outcome. The project is still building successfully. Let's go back to the browser. Everything is rendering all fine. Client-side transition is working perfectly. Let's inspect the markup, right? Every time we do a client-side route transition, this div and this div is re-rendering, right? So everything is perfectly working. So this root layout becomes the key component to share the visual elements that are shareable across multiple pages, like a header, footer, sidebar and stuff, right? So everything common like a header, footer, sidebar can actually be placed inside this root layout if your project have just one layout, right? So now you can go ahead and within the layout.tsx file, you can actually have a header, right? And below the children, you can have a footer. footer goes here. And let's say there's another div here called header div, class name header, and you can say the header goes here. Save this. The header goes here, the footer goes here, home, log, about page, right? Besides the visual elements like header, footer, sidebar, navigation and stuff, you can actually have client-side state here, right? So if you have, say, something like import, use, and state from React, and you have a client-side state, say counter or count, set count, use state 0, and let's say let's get a button over here, button that just renders the count, close this, and has a click handler, not on cut, has a click handler on click, and let's just increment the state over here, set count, use the count value, and say count plus 1. Remove this, add a square bracket, save this, go back, you have a button over here, right? Now increment this and change the page. We are on about page currently, go to the blog page, right? Your count is persisted, right? Go to the home page, come back to the blog page, come back to the about page, your count is persisted, right? So your layout becomes the key to persisting everything client side. You hit enter, everything is lost. You do a client side navigation, your state is persisted, right? So these are the key bells and whistles a Next.js project is made up of. Whether you're working with Next.js 1 or you're working with Next.js 13 stable and non-app router mode, these foundational elements and key constructs don't vary. And this is how you'll build a Next.js application even today and even in the upcoming months, unless the app router becomes a more stable offering. So now we have kind of briefly covered all things Next.js 13 as it's done today. From the next video, we'll dive into all the key and essential offering that's changing with the Next.js 13 app router structure. See you in my next video. Bye-bye.